What is going on, everyone? Guiding Light here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys an overview of another ultimate weapon. Now this one is going to be called the Blue Beetle, and it's actually a scout rifle which you can receive after getting all of the proper parts. Now I'm going to go over exactly how you can craft this weapon, and then we'll talk about certain builds you can use with it once you have it. We'll go over some of the damage output, things like that. Then you can decide whether it's really worth it, whether you really want to go out and grind this weapon for yourself. Now one of the parts will come from the Dead Bride boss, and I'll show you guys all of the different parts and how you can actually craft this weapon here. Now this really didn't take me all that long to get. However, just like anything else in the game, you do have to go through a lot of different random drops in order to hopefully get these parts. So it could take a few hours or it could take a few days really to get this. But if we see here, all these 4 different parts, they're going to come from different missions. And then you just have to craft each individual part and you'll be able to then craft the weapon. So it's a bit of a long process, but it's the same for every ultimate in the game. That's why I wanted to show you guys the damage output and things like that, what the weapon can do before you really invest all the time and the resources that you're going to need to actually craft all these items. So once you have everything, you can actually go and assemble the weapon. And now I'll get into exactly how you can get these parts. So in order to craft the weapon, you do need 4 individual parts. The good thing about going for this weapon though is you can get all of the parts from normal level difficulty. You will not have to go onto any hard mode in order to get this weapon. So whenever you want to go after it, just go to the weapons, click on the Blue Beetle, and you're going to need these 4 parts in order to make it. Now in order to get the first one, you'll notice here it says that all these parts will come from different bosses. In order to get the part out of the boss though, what you have to have is the correct amorphous material. So when you click on that, it will tell you which amorphous material you need in order to get the part from the boss. If you don't have it after checking your inventory, just simply run the mission it tells you, and you'll get that key, which you can then take to the boss. It is a bit of a process, however, that is the only way that you can get these ultimate weapons. Now for the second part, it's going to be the same thing. You want to make this part, you have to get it from the boss. But in order to get it from the boss, you have to make sure you have the proper pattern. So it'll tell you what pattern you need. You would just want to check your inventory. If you don't have that pattern, click on the mission, run the mission it tells you, and you'll guarantee to get that pattern. Then once you have the pattern, just go back to the boss it told you, and you'll have a chance at getting that part. So you may have to repeat this process of 4 or 5 times in a row in order to get one of these parts. In my opinion, it's best just to go for other items in the game and then actually get these drops at random than to specifically hope that you're going to get that one specific drop, because you can drive yourself crazy with that. Now I ended up getting this gun simply by going for other items. I just randomly looked in and saw that, wow, I already have 4 of the parts for this, started crafting it, and realized, okay, well, I might as well make the weapon. So it's a lot better when you do it that way. In fact, I'm already on track to making a second one, simply from just grinding out other missions. So once you have all the parts, you do want to go and build the weapon. It'll take about 4 hours. Now that I have the weapon, I'm going to show you guys what it can do and the characters that it's best when used on. So this weapon will actually come equipped with all of these special abilities. Now when a fusion skill is active, it will grant the unique ability of Arcane Energy. Now what Arcane Energy does is it actually increases your skill's critical hit rate by 50%. Now after that, you can also get the Purification, and what that does is it actually removes all debuffs from your Descendant. Now this is actually a pretty big deal when running certain characters that you can't get debuffed, or that if you do, you can actually remove it. Now, if you go into certain mods, you can actually get this damage up pretty high. It's at about a 177k right now, and that's before equipping any energy activators or things like that. Now, the thing that debuffs is these items here. You'll notice when you go into certain missions, there's certain buffs and debuffs that will occur based on whatever enemies you're going up against. So when using this weapon, you can actually clear these debuffs, and you can even do it when using it against the boss as well. Not only that, but it then also does increase your skill critical hit chance. So when you use it on characters like Bunny or even Valby, you can really see the most of these benefits. It is also quite good on Glay, Jaber, or even Viessa, because any character where you use a lot of abilities, it's going to be great on. Now as you can see, there's always a lot of enemies that can debuff you, but this weapon will clear all of the debuffs that happen to you. I also took it into a few hard mode missions and found that it actually did perform pretty well in these missions. However, there are a few more scouts that are just about on the same level, if not just a little bit better. But keep in mind, they're also not going to have that ultimate perk. So I think it's very worth it to run this weapon when using these specific characters that I mentioned. However, if you're going to be using other characters than that, it may be best just to go with a different scout. So I would say that this weapon is worth farming for, or at least crafting if you have the parts. I actually wouldn't really go out of my way actually to farm for it. But if you notice you already have maybe 3 to 4 out of the parts, or even 2 of the parts, I might go out of my way to get the other 2. Once it's built, it's a pretty great weapon to use in certain missions. But the thing is, if you already have other scouts, they're gonna be just as good, if not just slightly better than this. The only reason that this weapon will become a lot better over time is due to that ultimate perk, or if you use those specific characters that I mentioned. If you do, then they can become quite worth it when trying to get through certain hard mode missions, like the ones that debuff you especially. It also will boost critical hit rate and things like that on your abilities, but there's already certain ways you can do that on other mods, so to just go out of your way specifically to run this weapon for that wouldn't necessarily be worth it. But it's good to know that when the weapon's on, you don't have to slot in as many mods for things like that, meaning that you can make certain builds based around this weapon. Now, another thing to keep in mind though is that each and every time that you craft one of these weapons, the ultimate perk will become better and better, meaning that eventually over time that critical hit rate could see an increase. So when paired with things like an AR or a sub so that you have something more versatile when people get close, the scout is actually pretty great. It's not the best when really close up to enemies. There's submachine guns and things like that are always going to be better. But if you ever need something for medium to long range, this is actually a pretty great weapon to consider.